All right, welcome to another Gray's Academy. I'm going to just do a quick mic check and make sure that Antoine, you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Perfect. So awesome. Well, welcome to Gray's Academy 301, where we will be going over blockchain technologies and distributed ledger technologies. We've got Antoine joining us today, and we'll kind of do a couple slides, and then we'll get things going. So if you need to pause and take a look at this is the forward-looking statement. I'm your host, Gray Juba. I'm a technical marketing manager focused on industries. I'm a former automation and controls engineer, Splunker for over 4 years, and customer before. I generally like to focus on the new innovation and new markets type of things, so non-traditional use cases, maybe of some Splunk. First comp was in 2016. Some of my hobbies include home brewing, beekeeper, barbecuer, fisherman, and all types of things like that. And today we have Antoine Tolome joining us. And I'll let you, Antoine, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. So, been in Silicon Valley since 2008. This is my fifth job and doing many startups here. In the last 4 years, I've had the chance to work on Ethereum. I have the background in enterprise software. I've been at Splunk for roughly 2 years. And I'm a big open source enthusiast. I participate with the Apache Software Foundation. I used to be a committer in the Eclipse Foundation, and I contribute some to the Open Telemetry project. And during my free time, I like to hike here in the mountains, and I'm a scout den leader for my kids. And when I have nothing else to do, you'll find me gaming.
So that's the problem, is there's usually not much time when there's nothing else to do. There's always something to do, especially in the blockchain world. It never sleeps. So let's say I get a message coming through. But we'll keep going. If I think we've kind of mentioned we're having some technical difficulties with the LinkedIn streaming, but thank you everyone for joining here. We'll probably post it onto LinkedIn later. Perfect. So a little bit about how Gray's Academy works. So we have set it up in a 3-part series. The first Thursday is the proficiency level beginner, so Splunk 101 in the cloud. And the second Thursday has traditionally been kind of like the intermediate, and the third Thursday is the expert level. But it doesn't mean you have to know what it means by expert, just you have some knowledge of Splunk. And then we'll be kind of talking about how Splunk is used in some of these other industries or technologies. So with that, we'll proceed. A little bit of live streaming theme. Have fun, ask them, like, what is your favorite Power Ranger, favorite Splunk search command, things of that nature. You saw that I'm a big barbecuer, and whether I like charcoal or propane. And as we go through this, we kind of like want to make this seem interactive. So if you ask us questions, we may go down that pathway, and at the same time, we may not be 100% prepared for it, just because it's kind of taking a detour. So you might see some bumps along the way, and that's kind of intended. We want to be able to answer the questions as they come towards us. And we do have some moderators, and we want to have some fun. So thank you everyone for joining us. A little bit kind of what we're doing today. We're going to have intros, presentation, a little bit of a demo, and then kind of close things out. And with that, I will pass it over to Antoine to kind of take the next steps. Antoine, do you want to share the screen from your side of things, and I'll bring it up?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get this here. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Let me know when you're showing your screen, because, yep, there we go. I can see your screen, and I brought it up into the presentation now.
That is all right. Let me present this slideshow. Let me know if you can see this.
I can.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk a little bit about blockchain and Splunk today, and we're going to kind of also take it as a subject where we want to explain a little bit what blockchain is here before we go deep inside what we're doing for blockchain. So it would be a great level for people who want to intro themselves to blockchain, before they go deep inside what Splunk has done with them. So what is blockchain? Blockchain is really something that you turn on CNN. This is something that comes up every hour now. It's a technology that has been kind of eating every industry, and at the core of it is a set of peer-to-peer networks that work around a shared ledger. So every participant has kind of the same vision of the data, right? And most of the time, what that means is that most participants will have a complete copy of the data set. So there are really three basic building blocks. One is the distributed ledger. So you have a database that represents the state of where we are. A consensus algorithm. So we agree on how we are going to exchange information. It can be, maybe you heard of proof of work with Bitcoin, right? There are other algorithms as well that exist. And then there's a framework for incentivizing and rewarding network participation. You don't want to have bad actors. You want to make sure that you reward people to play along with the game. Usually when people think about blockchain, Bitcoin comes up. At least it used to be very much like the top of mind for most people. But when we go into the enterprise, we actually see a variety of technologies. And they're no longer called as much blockchain as much as distributed ledger technologies, right? So they can be Ethereum, but you can see also down here is a logo for Fabric and R3 Coda, which are other systems that kind of perform the function of creating distributed ledgers with consensus and still are fit for the enterprise. So another aspect of this is what is the state of the market? What do analysts think? We see this as this is a big opportunity, not really for us, but for Splunk customers, right? And Gartner research has been showing that there's quite a bit of an uptake. Some of those numbers, of course, are in the sky like 5-10 years from now, but they do show a stream of interest. And that's a stream of interest we have seen as well at Splunk, right? So our customers would come to us and say, we want to make sure that we understand this technology and that you can be our partner to understand it and to analyze it and make sense of it. So that goes well into my next slide, which is why Splunk Blockchain? So we have a team at Splunk which is actually doing blockchain and distributed ledger technology day in, day out, right? And we are investing a little bit into that to make sure that we're ready, because we have customers coming to us and asking for this type of solutions. What we found out really quickly that it was really, really difficult for our customers to not just make sense of blockchain, but also gain visibility into their blockchain solutions, right? We saw that there were many options between people who want to run this on-prem, like a server behind you, in the cloud, hybrid, managed, unmanaged. How we're going to run all those different components. And on top of that, it's a distributed network. So all of a sudden, there may be a remote machine that may break your existing system. There were new data sources coming in, especially different format, different level of maturity of those data sources. We saw interoperability issues between different consortiums. So how do you make sure you're all running the same version of all the same software? And quite a few tools for logging, especially in terms of maturity for logging infrastructure. Metrics, tracing is a work in progress for some of those blockchains. And a lot of interesting tools around also like what you build on top, right? So all the distributed applications that you would want to have, all those front ends, how you want to make them as mature and secure as possible. So
perfect. So I mean, that's it kind of gives you a general understanding. So you've described it from both the development side of things to monitoring an active, existing blockchain. So whether you're building a smart contract and you need to make sure you're monitoring that on your server behind you versus an existing Ethereum, let's say the Ethereum blockchain, you want to monitor the traffic, let's say for like a what is it called? When you actually sign a smart contract and you put it on the blockchain, you want to monitor how it's functioning in that environment. So really, it's kind of like a development plus just the analytics side of things, which is something that we see as Splunk used for a lot of things.
Exactly. So this is our traditional Splunk infra monitoring play, that we want to make sure that you are secure, that you're getting all the interesting data points from your blockchain deployment, so you can make sense of its uptime, you can make sense of its performance. but also now we have new data sources coming from the blockchain itself. So this distributed ledger is also informing you about what your partners are doing in your consortium. And you're going to want to be up to date on their own deployments. You want to follow the transactions that they're sending to your contracts, like you just mentioned. So all this is becoming more complex, and you need a solution like Splunk to really be able to analyze all that data, render it in a way that you can really spot issues really quickly, also understand the value, and deliver to stakeholders, in a single glass of pane, the complete value of that blockchain deployment.
And what comes to mind is, especially when you're working with, it's different about, let's say, a blockchain and versus, let's say, normal type of deployments, is like once you, especially with smart contracts, once you just, create that and push that up and it's running, you kind of want to make sure that you're really, really, really extremely confident that it is deployed correctly, because you can't just go and say, oh, you know what, that smart contract, I had a little bug in it, so I need to refix something. So it's really important. So for people that aren't familiar with blockchain, when you create and deploy a smart contract, that goes up to the web and that's there. You can't undo it. And that's the beauty of blockchain. Of course, there's ways to get around. I say get around. It's not really getting around deploying a smart contract, but you can, let's say, deploy another smart contract out there that is in a different spot, but then you can make some kind of smart type of analytics. But really, the last thing you want to do is doing a bad smart contract out on the let's say, Ethereum blockchain.
Absolutely. So, and lots of that development also goes toward those type of analytics of understanding if your contract is being used in a way that you did not foresee. Understanding if you have maybe some user who's having a pattern of use that is weird, unexpected at least. One of the big aspects of this type of change is that they're composable. So your smart contract may actually be called by another smart contract, right? So there may be also ways where you can start chaining between your partners, different contracts together to create interesting workflows. And before you know it, you want to be able to trace the whole interaction to make sure that it's actually working as it should. But there is a little bit of a component to that, and we'll go to that in just a sec, because there are different types of challenges depending on what your blockchain is trying to achieve.
Correct.
So, you might be familiar with the mantra that Splunk has around, it's getting data in and the data to everything platform, right? So logs, metrics, traces, it's the thing that we say, right? These are the components of the data we want to get into Splunk, so to make sense of your situation. So we're adding with blockchain an additional one called ledger, right? So everything that happens on chain we can analyze, we can collect, we can ingest into Splunk and make sense of, right? So that allows us this new capability called transaction analytics. And it works across multiple different types of chains. So we're not particularly married to a vision of the specific blockchain that we see is going to be the winner take all. From our expertise and experience, we see that different use cases bring different types of technology to bear. And one of them is going to be Ethereum, maybe for public and some of the permission use cases. One that was very popular is Fabric, around all the use cases for consortiums and supply chain. And we see quite a bit of uptake for Coda, which is mostly used in financial systems. So that's a little bit the vision at the top in terms of how we see that as a part of the platform for Splunk, right? And that allows us also to look at this from the ledger of multiple ledgers at the same time, right? So with Ethereum, what's been really interesting for us to see is that we used to have just one big Ethereum chain that would just be the canonical truth for everything that happens on this. And most recently started to splinter and have multiple versions of it that would run alongside it, right? This is not exactly, if you're a blockchain aficionado, you might not like that analogy. But the truth is, we now have multiple Ethereum-like chains which are running in production, which allow people to do a variety of interactions even between those chains, right? So now we want to be able to cross-reference those different chains together. And how we do that is we can ingest all those chains and make interesting statements, such as seeing a bridge between two chains, sending money from one chain to another.
So is that like in the example where it may be an Ethereum like protocol, but there's another one that's like a bridge where you're going to be doing like the wrapped type of application, where it's basically wrapped Ethereum on a different network. So you're being able to watch them both and manage the whole communication through that like bridge per se.
Yes, indeed. And so this is a big improvement in terms of scalability of last year. New chains like Polygon, Arbitrum, um, Phantom, I think, came up as well, have started to sprout in the ecosystem, and they're much faster, but they don't have as much security as what you would want on Ethereum mainnet, right? So what people do is that they will stake and wrap some of those items, such as their Ethereum on mainnet, and get in return on that other chain the equivalent, right, in the Polygon native asset, so that they
Hmm.
may transact on that. So think of this as you take your interactions on a different chain, you work and you create all sorts of value there, and at some point you want to go back to the main chain, you can actually exit and go back to the main chain to get your money back.
Right, and as you're looking at those two different chains and those communications, you said you. I mean, I'm sorry for my false of understanding, but you essentially have two smart contracts that are functioning in tandem in a way from each of those different chains to be able to manage the amount has gone across and how much is going this way. Because the thing is you could go across into, let's say, the Polygon chain, and that can be moved around to a different wallet, and then it still has to track the total amount of going back the other way and making sure that we have a zero sum type of application in which everything is tracked, as well as making sure that you don't lose, because that's one thing about crypto is it moves to the wrong location, it's gone. It's not like this kind of magical thing where you can just call somebody up and get that back. So it's really interesting how you can then tie in Splunk to both of those chains to create a whole picture for both of them.
Right, and there's a very interesting market that is being developed right now about this type of communications. And bridges right now, what they would do is they would watch closely the activity on a particular smart contract on one chain, and they would see that people are sending, just like you mentioned, some currency to that smart contract, and associate that with a wallet address on the other chain, right? And then they would form a contract call to the other chain saying, you need to send this much to this particular contract. So from a security standpoint, that's a very interesting weak point that really needs to be understood well, right? So there's always some attackers who are going to try to look as if they're sending the money, but really they're not. There are also some bridges which could be corrupt. So in a trust nothing architecture like this, you would want to be able to have watchers run and kind of monitor the activity of the bridge itself. And in some of these schemes, what we've seen is the bridges would even set up rewards for people to, remind them that they were not doing a good job, and so they would actually get money, and the bridge itself would lose some reputation, but also some actual money if they don't perform correctly.
Great.
Okay, so one thing that we did right away is that we bound together this blockchain story with what we have in terms of infrastructure. So if you remember Conf 19, we had this Buttercup Bucks experiment running. I wasn't there yet. I just joined a little after. But it came together as a great experiment where we were able to combine all the infrastructure that we know about, like all the Amazon services, but all the nodes themselves running the software. And we were able to have a good security posture and report that. At the same time, also have a donation tracker, see exactly where people were spending the money, where the transactions were going. All that came together and gave us a complete view into the exercise of that conference. So this adds like instant visibility. All of a sudden, you can tie up, the view of your infrastructure with how things are going for your business, and you can, put that on one dashboard that gives you like complete view into this. So that's one of the big things that we have done for blockchain with Splunk. We also remove silos, so we'll talk about that even more. One big thing that we did as well is we innovated in the way that people would want to work together. So blockchain has an extremely interesting challenge, which is all of a sudden you have a number of organizations trying to come together and collaborate without trust. How would you go about creating some level of a health factor that would tell you how the consortium is doing, right? So in this particular diagram, you're seeing different members participating in a consortium, and they're all volunteering some information back to an operator who's able to then kind of manage and report to everyone the health of the consortium, right? So in that particular case, what's interesting is there some of them will report everything, such as even the transactions or some of the health metrics of the nodes, and some of them will just give an liveness counter or something that just gives them the idea that they're still around and working. So that allows those consortiums to grow faster, to add additional members, and to still be able to report on health to stakeholders, so that the consortium itself knows how to make the best decisions, right? So this can be helpful also to understand when or how to onboard members, whether we should probably take action against one particular member who's no longer active, for example, this one on organization 3. So all those things kind of come together there. So what we add for blockchain again, right? So from our perspective, you already get with DevOps and APM, metrics, traces, logs. Now you also get Ledger. You also get IT and security operations to get in compliance, to have the best security. And on top of that, now we're adding Ledger Analytics. So we can get on-chain, off-chain, cross-chain, any chain. We can get all that data together, and we can make sense of it for you, right? We can make sense of the chain, the data that is going to be stored on blockchain by default is not natively human readable. It's been encoded. It's been, kind of compressed as well. So we have the ability to decode that data to really get back to human readable data that will make sense for your users. More than that, I mean, in the most recent editions we've had, we will even fetch additional metadata that relates to your asset. So we'll talk maybe a little bit about non-fungible tokens if you have time. Some of those tokens have, interestingly, some properties such as an image. So now we're reaching away from blockchain. We're going back to the world of the web. We want to get some of those assets ingested in parallel, so we can combine them and render all this rich information for you. And that's also what we do with enriching the index ledger with any third-party explorer or API. So this all comes together, and it's extremely extensible. So customer of ours can really use blockchain for their custom use case that they have for the enterprise. So this is what I alluded to earlier, where we see two different types and classes of blockchains, and they have very different interesting gotchas and challenges. So on one end, we have permissionless, where, just like you mentioned, Gray, you need perfect security at all times. It needs to be flawless, but you may also get away with a little bit of a slower rate of performance, where you have a large network of peers. You're going to want to have some liveness, but it's okay if your node is not as up as some, because your contract does not just live on your node; it's living on everybody's node, right? So for Ethereum mainnet, for example, you may deploy your contract, and then you can track it, and you can only track some of the activity that relates to you. Bitcoin as well, same way. XDAI is one very popular sidechain of Ethereum. That's something that we have been tracking as well, and it gives us like all those added bonus of having a fast chain that's giving a little bit of information about some of the wrapped Ethereum or things like that. And then we're looking into Polkadot as an additional chain to watch for. On the permission side, all of a sudden the challenges are very different. So we see routinely customers asking for a transaction rate of up to 10,000 transactions a second, right? For Hyperledger Fabric, we have a lot more composability from the code standpoint, where people can embed that into the middleware and their existing enterprise tapestry of services. Some of the chain code will be offered in Java or in Node.js or in Go. So you go back to this rich world of development where you have the ability to also do manual tracing if you want, right? And that's a thing that we actually showed during one of the episodes with OpenTelemetry. For permission Ethereum, you have a couple flavors to that right now. One is Besus, the other one is Go Quorum. And they work together under the IBFT consensus protocol, and they have these very interesting privacy preserving schemes using Tessera, for example, to keep away some of the private information from the consortium. So even if you have 10 members in consortium, only 2 of them may privately transact without losing any confidentiality. In Coda, very interesting framework. It's been built as a programming and kind of a template language for people to deploy at large transactional services that relate to database to get kind of the information. And this is very transactional and very robust approach to this, which is really meant for a few parties to work together. So very different landscape, very different challenges, some incompatibilities between those different technologies, and yet you would see Ethereum on both sides, for example. So there's some reuse that we can have between those two. Any questions about that?
No, I think you're good.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to go back, pull it back a little bit, and I want to make sure that we kind of address a little bit where we fit in that. And sometimes people will be like at this point puzzled about what exactly is it, where do we fit in there? How do we even consume blockchain, right? So to go back to what you were saying, Ray, if you have a Web3 dApp such as a contract, right, it will be sitting on this blockchain as a state element, right? So anybody can go and pull that Web3 dApp and take a look at the code, and they can poke around, they can call the functions. When they call the functions, that will actually create transactions and events, right? That are going to be recorded on state. They will alter the state of the blockchain, and yada yada. The world keeps going around like that. Then everybody is going to want to be able to interface with this. So there are many ways by which you can run those blockchains. You can run it yourself on your laptop or your server at home. But most of the time, people who just want to be able to develop against it, they would run that against managed blockchain nodes. There are 2 big providers that I know off the top of my head, Infer and Alchemy, which allow you to kind of call into an HTTP REST API called JSON RPC to make all sorts of interesting calls to it. I want to see the state of my contract. I want to send a transaction. I want to send money to that person. This is how you would do it. And maybe sometimes you also want to, when you run this type of nodes, run them in a Kubernetes cluster because you want this much more flexibility. You have this managed environment. It's less work for you. You don't want to manage this space by yourself, this kind of thing. Right? So where we fit in that is we bring ourselves into the picture just like you would for any Splunk installation by having a view into your Kubernetes cluster, right? So using the APM approach with Splunk Observability Cloud right down there. We would be using the SIEM add-on as well to plug into Splunk Cloud. And that gives us also, like, if you want to run yourself your own local blockchain node, we can also get all, using all the TAs that we have for Universal Forwarder and all those things, we can get all the logs out. We can get all this information out to Splunk Cloud. And on top of that, we have a solution called Splunk Connect for blockchain, which is, depending on the flavor of blockchain, could be Ethereum, Fabric, Coda, Bitcoin, beta stage, alpha stage. And that data then is consumed by us and also sent to Splunk Cloud. All this information is going over the HTTP event collector API. Right? And that gives us, at the same time, infrastructure monitoring and ledger analytics. So this is exactly like you would instrument any environment for Splunk, but you get so much more because now you're able to see everything that happens on chain. So that's one of the integration.
Perfect. No questions at this point. I mean, it's how you're just laying out all the different built-in solutions right now about how we can tie into these blockchains.
That's right. Okay. So I'm going to toggle through that a little quickly because I talked about that, and I'll show you in a little bit. What's interesting here is we have a number of data connectors that we built over the years now, and we have some apps. So just to help you kind of make the difference, the data connectors are programs that we use to collect the data to send to Splunk. The applications are um, applica- dashboards and configurations that live on top of Splunk to help you make sense of the data, right? So you think about this as a application with that helps you see the transactions on Quorum, for example. So there are two different things. You need both to make it work, and they're both very easy to use. For what it's worth, everything that you see right now, open source and free, right? So we're going to go over some of those GitHub repositories, and you can see for yourself. Okay, so IT monitoring. So at the same time, everything that you've seen here is all about IT monitoring and making sure that we can work. So there are very standard, Splunk add-ons and technologies that you can apply here that have worked for every system under the sun. It's not different, right? So the thing that I personally have a little bit of a weak point. I kind of love OpenTelemetry. I think I'd say I'm a bit of a fanboy. So the latest Splunk OpenTelemetry Connect for Kubernetes is one of the technologies that we've been playing with, and it's working really well for us. But everything else that you were familiar with, such as the add-on for AWS, GCP, and Azure, these are things that we use ourselves in our own monitoring to make sure that our own application infrastructures are stay up. So yeah, we're using all those different things. So FYI, if you're looking to do IT monitoring with Splunk, this is probably best of breed at this point. Yeah, forget blockchain. This is the exact same approach we take for any software. And now the cool thing. So the ledger analytics, right? So we have all this. We can do all those type of deployments. We can deploy mostly with Docker, frankly, and then that goes into maybe a Helm chart, or you can also try to do it natively using I think it's Node.js based, so you have the ability to run that on your own, and that feeds into Splunk and our blockchain apps. So I'll show you a little bit of that. So this is for ledger analytics and IT monitoring with Hyperledger Fabric, just bringing together the view of that, right? You get all the data from all your infralogs. Oops, sorry. And then you, at the same time, using Splunk Connect for Hyperledger Fabric, you can get all the data from all your peers into Splunk to make sense of it, right? So we combine both to get you the best experience. Okay, so I'll show you this Splunk App for Hyperledger Fabric. That's going to come up in my demo. We also have Splunk Connect for Ethereum, and based on Quorum as well, and finally Coda as well, which is based mostly on OpenTelemetry and log analysis, which is very with Coda. We have had a great success with some of our analysts here with deep analysis, saying that we're the first full blockchain monitoring system on the market. We also worked with the community, especially the Ethereum community. So let me show you a few things here. We sponsored and worked with the ETH Denver conference, where we actually splunked everything that was happening live on the floor, showing all the transactions happening with the coin that was used to buy food or do very much anything, to pass for donation, things like that, right? So that helped us kind of. We were displaying that, on screens on TVs during the conference.
So these were like the purchases between the events. So people would go in. How would they lever, or were they using like a wallet on their phone or something like that for the purchases, or?
Yeah, so each attendee would actually get some I think Buffy corn bucks or something that they were so Buffy coins or Buffy die, and they were able to use that to pay for their food. I think some of it was to also show those attendees this: you should leave crypto. You should really understand how to use it with your phone, with your own device, right? And so you would load up some of wallet as part of your admission, and then you would be able to use that money at the end of a conference. If you had money left, you could decide to donate it to charity. And you know, you can see like here's the top donator, for example, is that person, number of donations. Here's the birthday donated at this time. Here's the highest donation is $51.997, right? And so all this to kind of help also the community and do those things. During the hackathon for ETH Denver, one of the things that the teams would do to kind of shine is also work with that data set, work with that chain, work with that coin to create interesting applications. So it would come together, and you'd have the ability to, for example, here create a paper coin and really create, interactive challenges. So it all really helped the conference and the attendees have a more real-time experience into things.
And start showing the future about how things can function as well, while also seeing it in real time, which is also the beauty behind Splunk, to be able to then see the dashboard and realization. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't stop there. So we did some work as well with the Ethereum community on Ethereum 2.0. That's the next version of Ethereum. It's a new set of technologies coming together to allow a different type of consensus algorithm based on proof of stake. The idea there is that people will put money at risk by participating in voting in a timely manner in a network to make sure that the blocks are being approved, right? So very much you would say, and you would stake 32 ETH to say that you will participate at a very regular time into the health of the network. If you do a good job, you may get some rewards. If you don't do a good job, you may actually lose money, right? So the big question is, if you have thousands of people participating, how do you make sure that this is actually a healthy network, right? Is it really 1,000 people that are participating, or just one person with 1,000 accounts? Can we make sure that we are getting enough diversity from all those validators? So you can see here at the top, right? We had 124 online beacon nodes, which were active on the network itself. This was a test net for Metasha, so not an actual mainnet. The actual mainnet for Ethereum 2 has many, many more nodes at this time. At the time as well, we had 82,000 validators that were running, and we were capturing a little bit of we were starting to see a little bit of a downtime and issues around chain reorgs at the time, right? We were also capturing all the things that you would want to be able to see from a technical point of view, right? So forget for a second chain. All of a sudden, you also want to understand, are we seeing enough, data traffic between all those nodes? So typical block propagation time between two nodes in two different geographies, 171 milliseconds. So that was pretty good, because we want to make sure we have a block every 6 seconds like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're playing with all this, and kind of what we were trying to achieve at the end is coming to a health score, which is kind of a combination of all those factors built together, coming together to help us make sense of the traffic, right? So that is where we came second on that particular work. We were awarded silver, as you can see at the top, and I believe we donated to charity our prize at the time. So that was a very interesting challenge, because we were going against the new technology, and kind of having this blockchain subject matter expertise helped us kind of veer on top of that. Whoops. And yes, I should mention this is actually a live demo. You can go to mdc.splunkdlt.com and see it for yourself. Okay. All right. Let me go to the next one, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we also participated in a very different one called the Reddit Scaling Challenge. We made that on top of XDAI. I mentioned that earlier. The Reddit community was looking for the best scalable solution to reward people who play Fortnite or who play all sorts of games. And they wanted to issue tokens to moderators and people in the community that play around. So they did a pretty much public RFP saying, hey, everybody, let's actually line up and let us know how you would scale to this many transactions. So the XI team kind of paired up with us in this and helped us. We helped them kind of bring a front end to their effort, so they could show us, what their transaction throughput looked like and how far they could take it and how much it would cost them to run this particular thing. So I believe they went with a solution analogous or a little different from that, but it was a very interesting and invigorating challenge because it gave us so much more to play with. And finally, I talked about this, so I'll pass on that, but this is our Conf19 Buttercup bugs. So this is a set of screens that were shown on TVs all around the .conf19 Las Vegas. So I talked a little bit about that. I'm going to toggle some screens, and I want to leave at least 5 minutes for questions. Is that okay, Gray?
Yeah, that's absolutely great. Let me pull up just to make sure to see if we don't have any questions just yet for right now, but so keep on going.
Okay, so yeah, feel free to start asking questions as I show you some of that kind of resources and things that you can go do next. So if you're looking to, maybe you're a Splunker, maybe you've been playing with some of those blockchains, there are a couple applications that I can recommend for you to go take a look at. One of them is ORS's Quorum app for Splunk, right? So it's been quite active. We have a very recent version that we just pushed out. It allows you to kind of set up your Quorum network and play with it. If you're looking for a kind of a sample or demo for it, you can use the Consensus Quick Start repository to play with it. Right. So this is an application that is currently used, that we have deployed and managed. So if you have any questions about that one, there's blockchain@splunk.com at the end. Feel free to reach out to us on any of that. Another one that's very popular is the Splunk App for Hyperledger Fabric. Splunk App for Hyperledger Fabric is interesting because it gives you a view into your transactions, and it's not always easy for people to understand with Fabric what is being logged and what is going on with their particular peer, especially because you have the ability to create multiple channels that may not talk to each other, right? So this will extract from a peer all sorts of interesting transactions and render that so that you can really make sense of it. We also have all the health and monitoring metrics that you would want to have to make sure that your network is live and healthy and that you're able to keep up with it. In terms of developer resources, I love to mention that we have an open source solution called Splunk Connect for Ethereum, which can ingest anything from the Ethereum world. We can ingest all blocks and transactions. We can also ingest ERC20 tokens. We can ingest NFTs. We're working on ingesting internal transactions, which happen inside a particular transaction. And we can decode some of those transactions using ABI decoding. So rather than going for the top level, I thought I'd zoom in right away into the examples. This is where you would want to start to get as much as possible some value out of this. And you can run that on your laptop. You don't need special equipment. This is all going to run with a simple Docker compose if you have Docker installed. So you can get that going and kind of see for yourself using the Ethereum Basics application where things are at. We have a pendant to that called the Fabric Logger, which is what you would use to ingest all the data from Fabric into Splunk. Right? And it comes also with those examples. So again, very important that you know about this. There's some pretty rich ones like Vaccine Demo, which would require you to run a Hyperledger Fabric cluster, or one that is very minimal called Minifab, which is just using the Minifab utility from Fabric and allowing you to run it alongside with your Splunk deployment so you can see for yourself how that feels like when you have just a little bit of interfacing with the two. The last one, the Splunk App for Coda, really interesting one that allows you to see all the logs, all the metrics that will come out of a R3 Coda flow. So you can see this actually will mandate some of configuration for you. Coda is very Java centric. So We have here best practices about how you would kind of set up your flow. You would want to use JMX and Prometheus together to get your metrics out to Splunk. We'll tell you how to configure your login to get all the logs as JSON to Splunk to get even more value out of them. And all this comes together and is really interesting to use with the OpenTelemetry collector. Right, the OpenTelemetry collector allows you to get all those files, all the data from all those different locations very easily. So all the things I just mentioned here are also well documented on our website, splunkdlt.com. Feel free to go and peruse. We have all sorts of information here. So, for example, Splunk Connect for Ethereum. We have some of the information that you would want here as well that you can go and dive into. We have some more specific scenarios and use cases, for example, around Hyperledger Besu, which would go into some of the instrumentation of the metrics. It can really show you how to get all the metrics here. For Besu, we went maybe a little further. We got all the traces support into their JSON RPC interface. So if you use our APM solution, you can actually right now turn on tracing and get all those traces straight to Splunk. And we will be able to show you nicely where time is spent in your JSON RPC calls.
Perfect. So I actually just dropped that in chat so people will see that for the splunkdlt.com. So if they want to dig in and see all the links out, so take note.
Awesome.
Perfect.
So if you have no questions, I'm going to just try to show you a couple things.
And sure. At this point, no questions right now. I think people popped in and said hello, but no direct questions just yet.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm going to just show you a few things here. We have our Ethereum Basics application, which is something that we ship as part of examples more than anything else. It's got this, the ability to kind of show you where you are in terms of balances and, your RW block coming in. And this is an interesting one. I don't know if I can zoom on that. Let me see. So this particular one is an example of what it looks like at a block level. You have the block hash, block number, contract, from, to, its information as soon as possible. So we are able to really render in a JSON-rich format the data that lives on the chain that is by default not actually readable. And so we have all the work around ingesting mainnets and some reference guides.
And the greatest thing is all the, you get to leverage all the tools that Splunk built into. So if you have people that know Splunk and the analytics side of things, you've got the integration built in. So you've got all these different chains already. And at the same time, these are just the ones that have, we have developed enough to the point that we can just put out on, let's say, up on, let's say, GitHub or things like that. But there's like, a lot of the Ethereum or a lot of other chains are either side chains or similar. So I'm sure that there's opportunity. We're not limited to just these. These are just the ones that we focused on at this point, because you dropped in, you said you've got Polkadot there that you started, being interested in. And I know as far as the world is blockchain, I want to say Polkadot is one of the fastest developing blockchains. So, as like things like Solana starts picking up, and then you start seeing these other ones. I think Avalanche you mentioned earlier. We're going to start. These are not necessarily ones that we're just not paying attention to. It's just not the ones that we've necessarily taken to as far as development right now. But that doesn't mean they're outside the question. So if as people are watching this, know that this what you see is not. It's not a WYSIWYG type of application in a lot of ways. So, no, this is great.
Absolutely, and let me maybe go through a few examples. I want to show you things that we've done with specific tokens. I'll jump right away to one of the most exciting things that we have done in the last month or so. So our team at Splunk, besides us, there are other teams that are kind of interested in blockchain, and they made a deployment to the Ring.me testnet where they allowed people to mint Buttercup, bunnies, nice kind of nifty little images here. It's possible for us to understand, what was really going on in terms of activity on that particular token by following the activity of that contract, right? So we can see when the mints happen. We can see that initially we had quite a few, then it stopped for a while, and now we're starting to see maybe some transfers hopefully take place more. I know that some of them had put some for sale on the this Rinkeby testnet, so it's not real money. It's mostly funny money to develop and play with the technology. What was really interesting for the team is to find out, like, did we actually get proper participation from everybody? Well, one of the guidelines we gave when we started was you should just get one, right? There's only a limited number of those NFTs. Can you just please get yourself one? And well, we saw that some people couldn't help themselves. Right? There's just too. So
and
now
that's
we
a
know.
big, yeah, and that's a big thing. And through my experience with NFTs, people want to buy a whole bunch of them, for as they drop. And a lot of these NFT processes and plans, they want to make sure that you don't have those like scalpers and things like that. You want to create a community. You don't want to create a community of scalpers. So something like this could really help a company and really start developing a positive demand and healthy environment. Because really what it comes down to is NFTs are a community joy. Like, I don't want to get into all the specifics, but it really boils down to is a common happiness or a common theme that people want to join and be a part of. And then, 25% of them all go to the same person. That's not going to be so healthy.
That's exactly right. And we actually have had questions from people who participate in this type of communities, and they want to assess the health of the community by looking at this type of charts, by looking at this type of information, because it will tell them whether it's worth spending the time or not into this community. Sometimes it's not obvious when you look at it from the outside whether there's actually a real market and something going on, or if it's just a few people playing, right? And so this is probably the beginning of more of that. For us at Splunk, what was very interesting is to also, by minting and participating in this, we started having people coming with better questions about the data that we're showing here to understand better how we're going to make that data available to them, and what is, we're just scratching the surface of what is possible at this time, right? So
I mean, the NFT community itself is so early. I mean, we're still just looking at pictures at this point.
that's right.
Depending on how you apply an NFT can change the whole landscape. I mean, are we looking at audio files? Are we looking at videos? Are we looking at movies? As we start getting into more different applications, this is going to be extremely critical about how companies will function, because this isn't just, right now we're such an early stage. This is, well, these are images and communities. It's going to eventually become companies building off whole structures off of it. We'll call them an NFT now, but the thing is it'll be much more than that as they grow. And making
That's
sure
right.
it's healthy from the get-go is going to be important.
Yeah, and then we've been dreaming about interesting use cases, such as having an NFT has some utility, right? So, I'm by no means am I a lawyer here, but it's pretty clear that if you had this type of unique asset in your portfolio, in your wallet, then there are multiple things that you could unlock or make available to you through this, right? So we would want to be able to participate in this revolution going forward, and we're in that position where we are performing the best we can in terms of analytics and understanding and visibility and compounding all those information together to help people innovate even more on top of those markets. So hopefully this is the beginning of something even bigger that's going to really play a fun role in 2022. I think we're just getting started. I wanted to maybe show you one last thing that we have available. It's unblocked.splunkdlt.com. If you need like a one pager or just a view into what we do that you can render on one page, that is the best way. This is actually a Splunk dashboard that we publish using our dashpub. So this is something that you can look at and is being maintained and updated by our team.
Perfect. I'm actually going to drop that into the chat as well, so everybody has that. Perfect. Well, awesome. This has been great. Thank you so much for coming today and presenting. So it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure to me as well. Thank you, Gray.
Yeah, no worries. So let me just do a little bit of closeout. I'm going to kind of share my screen really quick, and then we will finish up.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for joining us today. I've got the survey here, so I will drop that in chat. And just really want to say thank you all for joining us today. If you have any other questions, please reach out if you enjoyed this. At this point, we're going to be closing down our exercise with the Gray's Academy process and plan. So please fill out the survey if you want to see more of something like this, or want to see more of 101, want to see more of 201. Please come on here and take a look and join us for and encourage us to go down this pathway again. So thank you all for joining us, and you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And thank you again, Antoine, for joining me today. Bye.